What's up, everyone, and welcome to the Film Club. In this video, we are revisiting the gruesome masterpiece of Jonathan Demme, The Silence of the Lambs. The movie has both a story and a movie character you won't forget. People have even gone so far as calling it the godfather of all thrillers, which I think is a just comparison. With 5 Oscar wins, it is manifested as an all-time classic. If you love the film as much as me, join us as we take you through 25 facts you maybe didn't know about The Silence of the Lambs.
Good evening, Clarice.
To prepare for his role as Dr. Hannibal Lecter, Sir Anthony Hopkins reviewed case files of serial killers, visited prisons, and studied convicted murderers. Additionally, he attended court hearings related to gruesome murders and serial killings. I am somewhat glad to hear that he did all of this, given his incredible realistic character impression. During the first meeting between the two main characters of the film, Dr. Hannibal Lecter and Clarice Starling, Dr. Hannibal Lecter mocks Starling's southern accent. However, according to Jodie Foster, the lead actress who plays Starling, says that this was improvised and that her horrified reaction was genuine since she felt personally attacked. She later thanked Hopkins for generating such an honest reaction. After Lecter was moved from Baltimore, the plan was to dress him in a yellow or orange jumpsuit. However, Sir Anthony Hopkins convinced director Jonathan Demme and costume designer Colleen Atwood that the character would seem more clinical and unsettling if he was dressed in pure white. Hopkins later said that he got the idea from his fear of dentists. During the filming of the scene where Lecter and Starling first meet, Sir Anthony Hopkins suggested that he should look directly at the camera as it panned into his line of sight. He wanted to convey Lecter as someone who knows everything. With only 24 minutes and 52 seconds of screen time, Anthony Hopkins' performance secured the Academy Award for Best Actor in a Leading Role, making it the second shortest ever, just behind David Niven in Separate Tables from 1958 at 23 minutes and 39 seconds. However, in a percentage-based comparison, Hopkins stands as the shortest, featuring in just 21% of the film's duration. Sir Anthony Hopkins drew inspiration for his portrayal of Dr. Hannibal Lecter from a friend in London who had a disconcerting habit of rarely blinking while speaking. This unnerved those in his presence, which Hopkins saw as a perfect trait for this film's villain. When characters are talking to Clarice Starling, they often talk directly to the camera. When she's talking to them, she's always looking slightly off camera. Director Jonathan Demme has explained that this was done so as the audience would directly experience her perspective and not theirs, hence encouraging the audience to more easily identify with her. Jodie Foster spent a great deal of time with FBI agent Mary Ann Krause prior to filming. Krause gave Foster the idea of Clarice Starling standing by her car crying. Krause explained that the overwhelming nature of their work sometimes required such emotional release. When Sir Anthony Hopkins found out that he was cast as Dr. Hannibal Lecter based on his performance as Dr. Frederick Trevis in The Elephant Man from 1980, he had a question to director Jonathan Demme. Hopkins asked, "But Dr. Trevis was a good man," to which Demme replied, "So is Lecter. He's a good man too, just trapped in an insane mind." At times in the film, this is quite difficult to understand, but there sure is something remarkable about the character which is unusual in other villains. Notoriously private and shy, author Thomas Harris declined the opportunity to be involved in this movie in any way. However, he did wish the crew and cast the best of luck with the adaptation. The production received full cooperation from the FBI as they saw it as a potential recruiting tool to hire more female agents. While scouting for the location of the house where the serial killer James Gumb lived, actor Ted Levine, who played James Gumb, was astonished to find that the house under consideration happened to be not only in his hometown, but also right next door to his high school girlfriend's house. Initially, the actor Gene Hackman bought the rights to the novel which the film is based upon. Not only did he plan to direct the movie, but to play either Dr. Hannibal Lecter or Jack Crawford. He withdrew after watching a clip of himself in Mississippi Burning from 1988 at the 61st Annual Academy Awards, in which the thought of appearing in 2 such dark films in a row made him uneasy. It wasn't only Gene Hackman who loved the novel. After Jodie Foster first read the Thomas Harris novel, she tried to buy the rights herself, only to find Gene Hackman had beaten her to it. Luckily, she would later go on to star in the movie herself. Sir Anthony Hopkins said he saw Lecter as similar to HAL 9000 in 2001: A Space Odyssey from 1968. How come? Well, he thought both were highly complex, highly intelligent, highly logical killing machines who seems to know everything going on around them. The film made back its production costs of around $19 million within the first week of its release. It went on to gross over $250 million in total. When Sir Anthony Hopkins' agent phoned him in London about a script called The Silence of the Lambs, Hopkins initially assumed it might be for a children's film. It would be funny to see his reaction after reading the script. Sir Anthony Hopkins and Jodie Foster only share 4 scenes throughout the course of this movie. The idea to use glass instead of traditional bars in Lecter's Baltimore cell came from production designer Christy Zia. This idea stemmed from director Jonathan Demme's desire to create a more intimate atmosphere between Lecter and Starling in their scenes, which he felt was lacking when shooting through traditional bars. However, it's fair to mention that Thomas Harris's novel did describe Lecter's cell with bars but also featured a nylon net just behind them. Dr. Hannibal Lecter was chosen by the American Film Institution as the #1 greatest movie villain. Clarice Starling was chosen as the 6th greatest movie hero, the highest-ranked female on the list. During Clarice's visit to Dr. Hannibal Lecter in his new facility, he insists that she continue sharing her childhood experiences as part of their agreement. Reluctantly, Clarice goes on with her story about running away. Somewhere in the middle of her confession, she mentions bringing a lamb with her. If you listen closely after she says, "I thought if I could save just one," you can hear a distant noise, like something being dropped in the background. As it turned out, a crew member accidentally dropped a wrench during the filming. This unexpected mishap startled Jonathan Demme, who feared it would ruin the scene. However, Jodie Foster, staying in character, pressed on with the story, eventually convincing Demme to keep the footage. Once the director called cut, Foster turned her attention to the crew and exclaimed, "What the hell was that?" During Clarice's first meeting with Dr. Shilton, he mentions that when Dr. Hannibal Lecter attacked a nurse, his pulse never got above 85. While Dr. Hannibal Lecter is making his escape in the ambulance, the paramedic announces over the intercom that the patient has a pulse of 84. This once again underscores Dr. Hannibal Lecter's icy calmness, even in the midst of committing gruesome acts. The FBI was very impressed by this movie's accuracy in depicting criminal investigations, serial killers, and their victims. They especially praised the realism of the scene where Catherine Martin is begging to see her mommy, as psychological stress will often cause victims to revert to their childhood. However, they disagreed with Clarice discovering Buffalo Bill on her own because inexperienced agents would never be sent out alone on dangerous assignments. When Jonathan Demme explained to them that he couldn't change it because it was the movie's psychological climax, they relented, saying it would be the most improbable and rare course of action of all time, never to be repeated again. It should be noted, though, that in the original script, Clarice had been suspended from the FBI Academy over the failed deal with Dr. Lecter. When she meets Bill, she's technically a civilian investigating the case of her own volition. Like Casablanca's famous misquote, "Play it again, Sam," this movie contains a famous misquoted line as well. Most people quote Dr. Hannibal Lecter's famous "Good evening, Clarice" as "Hello, Clarice." This line did, however, appear in Hannibal 2001 when Dr. Hannibal Lecter and Clarice speak on the phone for the first time and Lecter says, "Hello, Clarice." This was possibly put in by the writers of the movie as an inside joke in reference to the misquoting of this movie. It wasn't all success for Hopkins on the back of The Silence of the Lambs. He was in a relationship with retail businesswoman Martha Stewart at the time, but she dumped him shortly after the film's release because all she saw when looking at him was a cold-blooded serial killer. There you have it, 25 facts you now know about the film The Silence of the Lambs. I hope you enjoyed it, and make sure to leave a comment if there are other facts we missed in the video. As usual, I round up with a random film recommendation. I recently came across the Korean film Past Lives, a simple story told exceptionally. Make sure to check it out. That's it for now. I'll talk to you in the next one.